Welcome. Thank you for taking a moment out of your afternoon, morning, evening to watch this brief recording of our budget presentation from Thursday, May 16th at noon. We're going to go briefly through our presentation we did previously at the budget hearing, and we will try to attempt to anticipate questions that might come from the community. So again, I'm Shawn Van Scoy. I'm Superintendent of Schools here in Gananda. With me online today is Natalie Melnick, our business official, and Robert Chavez, our PR specialist. They'll be assisting me as we go through this PowerPoint. Thank you. So the first question is, what is the budget? What's in the budget? It's important that people know that this budget maintains class sizes and high school electives. One of the things that we hear repeatedly from people is that I moved to Gananda because I wanted small class sizes. And we want the electives that Gananda offers that other districts don't. The other districts don't offer. So we want to make sure that you recognize and are aware of that we are maintaining enrollment and we're maintaining all of those electives. This also includes 23 students from our high school going to the career and technical education at BOCES. So those are students that go every day, either in the morning or the afternoon, to get job-specific training or opportunities, whether it's in auto body repair, whether it's in plumbing or it's electrical trades or construction, computer science. There's several opportunities they have to go to BOCES to get very specific skills training in certain careers, and this maintains that funding for students. It maintains enrollment in 5 of our students going to a P-Tech program. So every year we enroll one brand new student. They enter from 8th grade into 9th grade into P-Tech. This is a program, again, run through BOCES. It is a 5-year program that ends with students at the end of their time there getting an associate's degree. It is an advanced manufacturing program, and it develops students so that they have advanced skills that are readily needed by our businesses in our communities. We are purchasing 2 large and 1 small wheelchair bus. This is on our annual cycle for purchase of buses. This is included, this is expected, and we're maintaining that. It creates a 1211 K2 class. So looking at the needs of our special education population, we are transforming 1 special education class to create a 1211 K2 class. This also has an increase in the special education budget. One of the things we had happen this current year for the 2023-2024 school year is we had some unexpected changes to our special education costs throughout the year. This budget for the 24-25 year captures those changes and projects them forward. It includes reductions in the utilities that we have. If you look at the right, you can see that over the last 6 years, efforts we have made to improve our utilization of electricity has had significant gains for the district. The solar panels we've got behind the high school, the LED lighting that we have, we've installed cogen units at the elementary and middle school. All of those have resulted in a reduction in our expenditures by $302,000. Okay, so even though you are at home watching your utilities costs increase and our utility costs per kilowatt hour or joule is increasing, overall our costs are decreasing because we have decreased our utilization significantly over the last 6 years. You'll see an increased use of assigned fund balance. That is money that we carry from this year to next year to protect the district. That there's an increase in that utilization of those funds that are available at the end of this year to help fund next year's budget. We are continuing to fund in-district summer school and after-school programs. Those are still in the budget, and reducing 6.5 positions due to attrition. If I can address that briefly, the positions due to attrition, we are constantly looking at our enrollment and our how we size to enrollment. So we recognize that we have declining enrollments, and so we are making adjustments to our staffing to be responsive to that. When you look at the total expenditures budget, again, this is not a detailed list. These are the general categories for our budget. You'll see that our what looks like is our first line, total certified salaries, that's TRS, which is Teacher Retirement System. That looks like the salaries are going up 4.74%. What we want to be clear on is that that 4.74% does not represent a salary increase for teachers. Instead, that 4.74% is the result of us returning positions back to the general budget. In other words, we had ARP funding, federal funding coming out of COVID. We've used that money for the last 3 years to pay for some salaries to offer additional programs. Some of those positions are being brought back into the regular budget, and those, as a result, increase the total spent on our certified salaries. You'll see a decrease in our support staff certified salaries. The next major line you want to take a look at is an equipment line. The equipment line is dropping 11%. That's a reduction of $76,000. That is because we purchased a truck last year out of our equipment budget, and we are not buying a truck this year, so there's a reduction from year to year. It looks like a large percentage because that line is smaller than other lines. You'll also see an increase of 22% in the next to last line. For BOCES, the BOCES line is going from $3,022,000 to $3,688,000. That goes back to the comment I made on the previous slide about services for our special education population. We had unexpected increases in utilization last year that will be carried through to next year, which is driving a significant increase in our BOCES costs for next year. So many of our BOCES programs, while they include things like Wayne Tech, which are general ed programs for students seeking technical education, we also send students to BOCES for special education classes that we are unable to offer here because we don't have enough students here or because of specific knowledge areas that BOCES has. So there's an increase of 22% to that line, and is primarily driven by special education needs by our students. You'll see a decrease in interfund transfers. That means we'll be using less of some money from one place to move it to fund another part of the budget. So you're going to see in total at the very bottom, our budget increases by 4.06%. That's a $1 million increase over year to year in the budget, the planned expenditures. Natalie, anything you want to add to that?
No, you covered it very well.
All right, the other thing we want to focus on is our revenue sources. So this graph shows where we get our money from in terms of our total revenue sources that we have. So 29% of our budget comes from, our revenue budget comes from foundation aid. Foundation aid is a state aid. It's money given to us from New York State. The state has a formula to drive money to schools. There is no restrictions in how we spend that money. We can spend that money on teacher salaries. We can spend that money on supplies. We can spend that money on computers. We can spend that money on textbooks. We can spend that money on library books. We can spend it on capital. There's no restrictions on what part of the budget we use to spend that money. It comes in as general aid. We also get 9% of our revenue budget from building aid for capital improvements. This money is money that we are getting to spend specifically on capital improvements. So the state is giving us money. It's reimbursement from money previously spent by the district and our projects to pay for our bonds for work that has already been done. So this is work that's been completed. It's money. It is basically our mortgage payment, to make our mortgage payment. The state gives us money so we can make our mortgage payment on our buildings. We can't use this money for other things. We've got to turn it around and use it on our capital improvements. The next portion is we get 5% of our operating aid or our budget aid from transportation aid. So again, this is money we spend. We spend money on transportation in a given year, and we get that money back in the subsequent year, a percentage of that money back. That money amounts to 5% of our total budget. Natalie, I'm gonna put you on the spot. When we spend money in transportation, what percent do we get back each year on a given dollar?
It varies a little bit, depends on how many miles we drive, but typically between 68 to 80%.
Great, thank you. Next is high cost aid for special education students with high tuition. So this is revenue we get for spending on students that have high costs. So it is typical that we will have a student whose program at BOCES or a private placement or an out of district placement could cost $80,000, $100,000, $200,000. So what happens is that for the current year, for the 2023-24 year, anything spent on a specific student over $50,000 was aided for high cost aid. We got additional revenue back for anything over $50,000 for this year. Next year, that number jumps to $60,000. So next year, we'll only get high cost additional aid for costs that are greater than $60,000. Anyways, that money is money reimbursed to us because of the expenditures we've made on high cost students. Next, you'll see 7% BOCES aid for purchases. Again, we purchase things, we purchase services, we make purchases through BOCES because we get aid back. So every dollar we spend at BOCES, whether it's on a placement for a student or whether it's a training process for an administrator or teacher, or if it's a Wayne Tech placement, we make expenditures for those programs, for those services. Sometimes we buy computers from there. Depending on what it is, we get different percentages back. There is not one straight percent aid for any BOCES purchases. It all depends on what we're getting. But that can range, again, anywhere from 60 to 80%, depending on what that purchase is. So that money that we spend in a given year, we will get that back next year, and that will account for 7% of our revenue for next year. 43% of our revenue comes from property taxes, and 7% of our expenditures will be from reserves, from fund balance, or other revenue sources, which could be we get reimbursed, we get funding from Wayne County. Wayne County collects sales tax. A small portion of that sales tax the county collects comes back to the school district. That can be anywhere from $300,000 to $350,000 for Gananda, depending on how our enrollment compares to other school districts. So on the revenue side, you're seeing an expected increase in our high cost aid by $221,000. We are seeing an expected increase of 3% or $233,000 and a tax levy increase of 2.87%. So those numbers, those increases, those expected increases were identified prior to New York State adopting its budget. Okay, so we know as of today that we are not getting that we will not be getting that foundation aid 3% increase. While we had planned for it, we had to make a decision on our budget before the state approved their budget. So we had to make a commitment, and we made the commitment to this. The 2.8% levy increase will stay the same. We cannot increase that. That is what you're voting on next week. We're voting on a $324,000 increase to the tax levy. So why do we budget 3%? Well, April 1st is the date that the state is supposed to approve the budget. They did not approve the budget until April 20th. The problem for the school district is that we have to approve a budget by the 24th, and it has to go out to the state by April 29th. So the problem we ran into this year was that the legislature and the governor did not approve a budget till the 20th. We had to make a decision prior to the 24th board meeting. So we made a recommendation on April 10th on what the budget would be. That included a projected 3% increase because that was what the state and assembly legislatures were requesting or for school districts. We did not get that. What that will result is that we will need to be very careful about how we're spending money next year, knowing that we are going to be missing some of our revenues. We'll be looking for other revenue opportunities, and there may be other areas that we have to make reductions. We will not be making additional reductions to classes or instruction at this time. We've made that commitment to the board. We'll find other ways to make up that gap of the 3%. One of the big things driving this our Gananda's issue when we talk about budget and we talk about your taxes is the foundation aid formula. This is the basic aid school district gets based on their number of students, based on the wealth of the district and several factors. So we've done an analysis in Gananda and we've looked at what we get. So if we do our foundation aid that we get from New York State divided by our number of students, next year Gananda will receive $9,042 per student. What we're showing you here is what the other districts in Wayne County receive per student in the foundation aid formula. You'll see significant disparities. You'll see that Gananda, Palmac, Wayne, and Williamson receive the smallest, and other districts receive 50% more, or actually double what we receive. This is a problem throughout the state. It's just not a Wayne County issue. This is an issue throughout the state. There are districts receiving very high aid from the state, and there are other districts receiving very low aid. So we want you to be aware of this because it plays into how much we have to expend. One of the things we hear about is, why is Gananda only spending $22,000 per student? Well, one of the reasons we're only spending $22,000 per student, which is lower than the state average, is because we're receiving significantly less in aid from the state. If we had that aid, we would use it we would be using that money to support students, to reduce taxes, to do a number of things. But Gananda does not receive support from the state like other districts do. And you should know as a taxpayer that our school board has engaged in this. They have met repeatedly with our Senator Pamela Helming, and our Assemblyman, Brian Mantolo. They are supportive. They understand our needs. The funding issues come from the other side of the aisle, so to speak. The funding decisions are being made by people in authority in other parts of the state. And we are, unfortunately, on the equity side, losing out on this. So that feeds into our revenue budget. This is our revenue budget. You can see that our building aid is down 12%. We had anticipated a reduction in our expenditures, and there is a reduction in building there associated with that. You can see that there is an increased use of our assigned fund balance. So we're using additional money. It's an increase of 66%. That is primarily due to our increase in special education. We're protecting the district from unanticipated changes in special education costs, and that's coming from fund balance. You'll see a 2.9% increase in the property tax levy for a total increase of our proposed revenue budget of 4.1%. You'll see that our proposed budget of $27,360,813 that matches the proposed expenditures. We have to have a balanced budget. We have to present the board a balanced budget. The board has to approve a balanced budget, and that is what is presented to the community. A plan for a balanced budget. This format is the legal requirement. We are required to present to the community the budget in this format. So you can see the administrative costs for the budget, which include administrative salaries, other administrative components. What am I missing in the administrative component, Natalie, besides salaries? You're on mute. Natalie, you're muted.
I'm sorry. It also includes all our legal costs, uh, all insurance costs, those type of things for the entire district.
Right. So some of those costs are not solely to administrative salaries, but to other structures that are administrative responsibilities to manage the organization.
One of the cost drivers in this line would be actually liability insurance, as in our households. Same, the district experienced significant increase in liability insurance costs. It's almost 10%. So part of the increase is actually that.
Great, thank you. Capital improvement, capital budget is the capital we talked about. Those are our debts to maintaining our facilities, repairing our facilities, utilities. Those are all part of the capital budget. You'll see that there is a decrease in that expenditures by 4.4%. And you'll see that our program budget is going up by 5.9%. That is primarily your teacher salaries and your instructional costs that are coming out of that. Did I miss anything you want to add, Natalie?
It's all good.
We also want to point out that there is an additional proposition on the ballot. The Walworth Library has in the past collected a tax to run the library. They will not be collecting a tax next year, so you have to approve that. If the community does not approve this line, a tax will be collected. So you do have to approve as a community that a zero tax will be levied to support the Walworth Public Library starting in 2024. You'll also see on the ballot 3 board seats. We have 3 vacant seats. 2 of those seats will be 3-year terms, and 1 will be the balance of a term for a board member that resigned mid-year. So what will happen is that the 2 candidates with the highest votes will get the 3-year terms, and the candidate with the 3rd highest vote will receive the 1-year term. And again, there are 3 candidates. They are Robin Vogt, Tim Wadsworth, and Eva Burns. As a reminder, the budget vote is next Tuesday, May 21st from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Parking is at the rear of the high school, entrance through the rear doors and into the gymnasium. You will see what you see here is what you'll see on the ballot. Proposition 1 proposed to a budget of $23,360,000, $813. So you're approving that budget. You're approving the elimination of the tax for the Walworth C Library. And then you're going to vote on 3 seats for the Board of Education. Anything you want to add before I show the next slide, Natalie?
No.
So this slide is a projected tax rate for the fall. We have preliminary indications of what the assessments will be. We have the preliminary projection that our tax rate for the 24-25 school year will be $22.05. That's again $22.05. This is based on true. So this is a calculation. You actually may see on your tax bill something different based on how your town, whether they're at full value or a partial value as determined by the state. But we're looking at a $22.05 tax rate based on true, which is the lowest tax rate on true in 30 years. But again, this is a projection. Anything you want to add to that slide, Natalie?
No.
Okay, great.
You're doing a great job. Covered it all.
All right, everybody. Thank you for your time today. This will be posted to the website. We'll maintain it here through the budget vote, probably for maybe a day or two after that. But it's for your review. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing people on the 21st. Thank you.